Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Large Blast podcast, the podcast where we get large and stay large, because we're talking about the large boys of Warhammer, the Titans, today. I'm your host, Stoney, and I'm joined, as always, by my buddies Matt.
Flesh is weak.
And my buddies Welshie.
Questor Imperialis.
And we're here to talk about all things Warhammer, and in particular, some more AdMech stuff and some Titan things. But we're going to kick things off with a little something we call Hobbies Goings On, which is where we discover what hobbies have been going on in people's lives. So, Welshie, do you want to kick us off? What has your been hobbies goings on?
Yeah, well, I think Matt and I share a hobby going on this week. My painting bench was frantically trying to complete 20 more Necrons because 30 wasn't enough. Because Matt and I played our first real-life game of Warhammer yesterday for the first time in like 10 months.
How did it go? Were you rusty? Were you tried to roll a dice? Were you
So
like, how pick it up with your toes? Like, I don't even know.
It was techno on the board. It was my metal robots and his half metal men, and we needed a good squirt of WD-40 to get going. But once we'd set up and remembered the rules and the dice started rolling, it all came flooding back.
It's like riding a bike, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Very close.
So is this your first time using? Is this the first time using your Necrons army that you so lovingly put together about this time last year, really, wasn't it?
Yeah. I built them first lockdown, and I had one game with them in between the lockdowns using the old codex. So this is the first game with the full army and the new codex, which has been literally sat staring at me for months, which is excellent. Okay. And Matt's last game with his old codex for AdMech before the new one comes out.
A real changing of the guard.
What was your HQ?
Well, I bought the Silent King, so my list was the Silent King.
1,500 point game.
Yeah, he was a third of the points, the Silent King. And then the rest was basically just Necron warriors and some scarabs.
Can you? How do you think the game went, Stoney?
I think Silent King trashed shop.
Ooh, well, turn one, Silent King removed two of Matt's models before they did anything. One of his big robots and the flyer he so lovingly painted.
No, that was your Doomsday arc.
Oh, that was the Doomsday.
Oh, those things are nasty. Yeah.
But the Silent King, unfortunately, did only last 3 turns.
Oh, no.
3 turns. But he did his job, you know. He was a high priority target.
He killed his point cost, did he?
Ooh, probably not actually. Probably not.
It was a really good game. It was a harsh 2 turns, and you have to adapt to the situation. And it was a really fun game. And in the end, we drew
48-48.
we weren't even tallying up the points. We record them and then we counted them all up at the end of the game, and it was 48 all.
But the secondaries just make the game completely different. Like every turn, it's not like before where you just stay where you are and try and hold the objective. Every turn, you're trying to score points by doing something very slightly different, and it just makes it fluid. And I genuinely think it's the best. Sometimes the rules get too much. Sometimes there's too many rules going on, but the actual gameplay is the best 40k that I've played. And
they've refined it down pretty well now. Yeah. All right.
But that was my week.
Good. Cool. And I'm guessing, Matt, your report's largely the same.
Yeah. Well, somewhat. I feel a little reinvigorated after last night. But before that, I've kind of been feeling a bit fatigued by Warhammer, but Games Workshop in particular, just a bit fatigued and a bit because their marketing really is now fear of missing out, and I feel a bit tired of it, a bit tired of Games Workshop. Like, we've had Curse City, which has come and completely vanished, and they're never going to print it again. It doesn't even look like they're going to support it again. And there's all these box sets they bring out, like this Purity and Pain box set for Sisters that I desperately tried to get hold of and bought and have just thrown into my pile of shame. and now the new codex is coming out, and I'm really excited about the new codex. So I'm looking forward to the new codex because the artwork looks quality and the rules look good. But I'm also kind of like, I really cannot be bothered to have to buy any more models, but I know I will. It's like, oh my God,
the willpower,
I have to
man.
invest.
You've got to do it. You've got to do it. Like I saw all of the vampire models that you love, Stoney, all went up to pre-order. And it took so much willpower not to buy them because I wouldn't convert them for another 10 years.
Yeah, just to sit in the bag of stuff that's you collecting dust. Yeah,
it's just like they. Why are all these sets like one-off? Like you've got to order it and buy it right there, and it's just
I mean that's always been frustrating, those one-off set things, because some of them have got, you know, especially when they put in these unique models and stuff, and the community goes crazy, and then it's just like you can get them on eBay. You can buy their left arms on eBay if you want them, and that kind of stuff. You know,
it feels, and I think as well after the Warhammer Fest, like you know, it was all online, it was good, but they're doing another preview tomorrow, and it's just all this stuff, and you're like, God, it's just a constant like. I feel like a cog in a machine. And
that's how you love to be.
But do you think that maybe like during the year where we haven't been able to actually play Warhammer, that's basically all we've been is cogs in the machine, just keeping it ticking over, you know?
Yeah, this is the other point I just wanted to touch on, like which has maybe contributed as well. But in White Dwarf for about 5 months now, they've been doing some brilliant. They call it a flashpoint. So in every monthly White Dwarf, it's about 10 pages, and it's a whole campaign. And they've been running it for 5 months in Warzone Charadon, which is getting nearer and nearer and nearer to Metallica, the Forge world. So it involves Typhus and Nurgle and Be'lakor. And they've been bringing out all of these great rules and campaign systems to play in your games. But we haven't been playing any games. And Maelstrom of War, like they brought out the last White Dwarf, Maelstrom of War 9th edition. Like they brought all this stuff out. And
so we've got we've not only got a pile of shame in terms of models we haven't made, we've got a pile of shame in terms of rules we haven't played.
Exactly. So. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and that we spoke about the Sisters Codex sitting on our shelves for years, basically never used, and it's already going to be about to be replaced. So I've been when I feel like that, that's when I start painting Bretonians. So I've been doing lots of Bretonians because doing Bretonians, because you're not in the rat race. And I finished Cypher, so Bretonians and Cypher. That's what I've been doing.
Okay.
How about you, Stoney? How's your shame? Your pile of shame?
Well, my pile of shame, as you guys know, as we've talked about previously, my pile of shame is about 25 years old. As I said, I've discovered my box of old Warhammer from my mum's house. So I've been working on a couple of videos for the Large Blast podcast YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed to that, get out there, subscribe to it. Then you can see some of the projects I've been working on. But so I've been working on some of the old lead models. That I've got, which is kind of so combining them with bits of plastic. So I've been kind of rejuvenating some of my lead models essentially, and kind of trying to bring them up to date with some new sort of poses and things like that, which has actually been really fun, really rewarding. Because I mean, like the kind of the lead model sculpts is kind of sort of about where I would say my sort of sculpting level is, if you know what I mean, so that I can kind of keep up a bit more with the sculpting on the old models than I can with some of this new stuff. So I like that. So yeah, I've just been converting one of my old my favorite model from when I was a kid. That was like this Teach disc flyer dude. He was like, I made loads of stupid lore for him and gave him like a big stick that was like the Stick of Doom or some shit, and had a load of special rules unwritten that was all daft and shit. So like I've been doing him up, and it's been very rewarding. It's been a lot of fun. Lead is actually surprisingly like easy to work with. So
a bit varied this week. That was different to the normal intro. Yeah. Well done, everyone. Trying new things.
It's the news. Wow. It's the chuffing news.
Have you heard? 6s are now 4s.
It's the news.
Gene Stealer Limo's back.
News. So first part of news is brushes. We all love them. We all use them. They cost the fucking earth. We never knew why, but now they've released a load of synthetic brushes, which look quite interesting. So talk us through some of these.
Well, yeah, they're called the STC brush range, but it's their first time Games Workshop have ever made synthetic bristle brushes, I believe, or so they state, purely synthetic bristle. to be honest, and I think Matt's the same, I've never really used the Citadel brand ones, but
See,
I
Citadel
do
brand
really...
brushes are so overpriced,
Yeah.
so bad. Like,
They are.
yeah.
But I thought I'd give them a chance to talk about them purely because I went to Clark's Stationers on the weekend, which is my friendly brush supplier in Brighton, and paid half the price for a set of synthetic brushes, which I really like for different things. I've got a really nice set of hair brushes for like blending, but for details and stuff, I find the stiffness on the synthetic bristles much better. So maybe these will be worth a try.
I think that's it. Is for me, the Citadel brushes, they kind of cut, like, I like them up until about medium. So medium, large brush, all of that is all quite good. But as soon as they get to the smaller ones, you get that banana ring and just, I don't know, I've never managed to successfully keep a fine Citadel miniature brush for a long period of time. It's always ended up as something for doing dry brushing or, some other shit.
Yeah. I fully agree. And a LBP top tip is the Master's brush cleaner, though. That works wonders in a little plastic pot.
That green stuff thing?
You can buy green stuff, but you can just get it in art supplies, and it's like basically soap in a pot, and you get it a bit damp, and then rub your brush on it a bit, and then rinse it out the brush. It's
that's
really
handy.
good.
I've just been using actual soap, so that's
it's not that expensive.
It's so good. But I actually I tried to buy some more the other day, and a few months ago, and you can't buy them anywhere. I think it's because all the YouTube painters have said buy this stuff. So I don't think I've opened it yet, but I found a UK supplier because Masterton's is from the US. Right. So this stuff is a bit cheaper. So I'll have to see if it's as good.
Well, if you're listening to this on YouTube and you can't get it, it's our fault. Fuck you.
Yeah. So, so are these going to be dearer than normal brushes, or are these?
Yeah, of course they are. Look, they're all white. Look how aesthetically pleasing they are. That's 10% more.
Enough.
I don't know. I'd be interested to see if they replace them or not, and I'm also interested whether there's a bit of an animal rights kind of push thing behind it or not, moving away from fur brushes. But I've got to admit that my Sable series brushes are the top.
Maybe start releasing the genuine neck hair brush. They've got a huge quantity of that.
The next bit of news I'll introduce because it was sad and Stoney wasn't really a part of it. So if you've been watching on YouTube, you'll have seen our little daily previews of Warhammer Fest, where we all got together and did some reactions to what were some really cool reveals at different points during the week. But we were hoping for a big build-up for Fulgrim. We were saying the lion was thrown out there. Everything was thrown out there. And Matt and I sat down to record ourselves in person watching it. And it was...
And I walked 500 miles over the hill for an hour across the city that we live in. I walked, and then I realized I was going to miss the beginning. So I left my girlfriend behind and I ran down the street in front of all the horrible teenagers running to see the Warhammer preview. I ran the most I'd run for a year. I arrived, and then it came on, and I sat with. We were
screaming when the screen went dark, and it slowly faded to the Age of Sigmar logo.
Oh, it was so funny. We both
and our hearts stopped.
Oh my god!
If you're watching on YouTube, you can see a couple of stills of our reaction as we were expecting so much, and I'm sure maybe if you're an Age of Sigmar player, it's exactly what you wanted to see. But for us, it was just devastating. Tony, what did you think?
Well, and we turned it off and we went to the pub.
We did.
Well, I'd been doing these videos with you every day, so I was kind of half expecting, us to do one. And then when it didn't happen, I looked up the model. This big model, the one with the wings. What's her name? Yasandria something. I think. Whatever her name is. So I checked that out, and I actually thought that was a pretty cool model. To be honest with you, I thought this is maybe it could have been Fulgrim or something, but we should have learned by now that if we think something's going to happen, like the opposite of what we think is going to happen is going to happen. So at least I think, from a conversion point of view, we talk about that a lot on this show. Those wings are going to be seen. Every winged character from now on is going to have those fucking wings on them. Like, whatever Games Workshop has done, they've upped their feather game. I think this is quite a cool piece of dynamic posing on the base there. Like, I quite like the model. I'm not mad at it at all. What else dropped? What was the highlight of the drops for you this year?
Oh, out of all the days, it's got to be the Gaunt's Ghost models.
I was going to say, probably
really
the Gaunt's
were.
Ghosts are the ones that kind of, for us 40k players at least, are the most exciting. But from a conversion point of view, I think that this lady right here, whatever her name is maybe one of the more interesting ones.
Well, what about that crab?
Oh yeah, the crab.
The crab.
Yeah, the super crab. The internet went wild for the crab.
Yeah.
Oh, the fish guys with
There's
the crab.
there's I've seen online a conspiracy that they want everyone to vote for it as the best Citadel miniature of the year. They do that vote.
Yeah.
I want to see a conversion of the crab with some of these wings. Then that's the model of the year for me.
Yeah, with a bit of distance, I agree that it is actually quite a cool model, that Indraster. With a bit of distance from hoping it would be something else, I can see good conversions. And I even, for Age of Sigmar, like the new Sigmar Terminators with the kind of
really nice.
lion chest panel.
Yeah. I think if you were looking to do a Celestine or something like that, a conversion, then you could get something pretty fun out of this kit. So
I was going to agree with Gaunt's Ghosts, but actually I think that the High Lord of Terror model, which is now the super HQ for the sisters, was
we've got more
quality.
of her
That's pretty
coming
cool.
up soon.
Yeah. That is good.
Cool.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah. Sorry about fucking up last day of Warhammer Fest, guys. But everyone was too sad at the Age of Sigmar-ness of it. So here we are. Okay. Well, sad news. Large Blast podcast fans, if you, like us, were hoping to get your hands on a copy of Cursed City and convert the shit out of the cool models it had in them, it looks like that's not going to happen because they've started releasing boxes of the models that you can get in Cursed City, which usually means that they've come to the end of the run of the box itself. So if you were one of the lucky 15 people that managed to grab a copy, consider yourselves lucky. And if you fancy bunging your old mate Stoney some of them, just hit us up on Instagram. So what do you guys think about this? This is bad news, right?
Oh my God. Games Workshop turned off their entire online presence of this product immediately.
Yeah.
There's
loads of wild rumors flying around. People think there could be.
I think the one with the most weight is the fact that they seem to have the models because they're chucking the models into boxes and getting them out. The thing that I've seen that's made the most sense to me is that all of the card and all of the books and stuff are being printed outside of the UK.
Yeah.
And be it COVID, be it Brexit, be it something, has made the channel by which they're getting card and paper printed difficult for them to make more of the box, yet they seem to be able to get the models out. And I don't know how much weight that's got to it, but that's a potential worry.
I mean, that sounds fairly flimsy. I think if you really wanted to get this out, you could find some company that would print you up some stock or something like this, right? Surely.
It's the cost, I think, of doing it because it was getting printed in China, that kind of stuff. And...
So there are rumors going around that it could potentially be a copyright or intellectual property infringement where they've been told to get rid of the whole thing that's why because there's sometimes in those kind of agreements where you can no longer talk about that product because you can't support that product anymore. And Games Workshop essentially killed it, and they have not spoken about it since. They've not said what happened.
But it's interesting because you would have thought that if that was a thing, then I don't know, the people that felt they were being copied would kick up a fuss because usually that means that it channels some, stuff towards them. But I mean, what could it possibly be copying? It's sort of hard to,
because when they've sold out sets this quickly, the Sisters of Battle,
I guess maybe it could
the starter
be something.
Set, they said, "Oh, we're really sorry, we didn't work out numbers correctly. We're going to do a reprint. You can order it, and we'll send it to you in a month or 2 months' time when we make more of them. We'll make more of them. It's fine."
That's
Now,
why I think
nothing.
I think the printing thing's
it's
got some
interesting.
weight, because I just don't think they've set up whatever delivery production chain would be necessary for pumping out that kind of thing.
Okay, so new AdMech rules. So take us away, Matt. Do you want to tell us a little bit about some of these new fancy rules that you guys are about on the horizon for your army?
Yeah, I'm gonna take it away. I haven't really read them at all, but I can tell you. I can tell you a couple of things. One, I am excited. Two, they're new rules. But three, they are a bit of a rehash from the codex before the latest codex, which does actually, there is a trend with 40k codices where there'll be rule name in a codex, then your codex will get replaced, then it will come back in the next edition, and they'll kind of rehash rules from the previous edition. So a lot of these are very similar to stuff that was in 7th edition. But they look great. The whole thing looks great, and I know you can personalize tech priests and stuff like this, and really am excited to just get stuck in and learn more. Is there more you can?
Yeah,
have you read
so
these,
I think
Welshie?
yeah, I've read through these. So essentially, they seem to be following the kind of profile of all of the books that are coming out now. I've got this set scheme, right, where you either have Raven Guard or Ultramarines, or you have Mars, or you have Riser. So you've got a specific rule that goes with your army type. Then you've got something that you pick before the game that happens at the start of each turn. So each turn you've got something different in effect, and that adds a bit of fun to it. So that's what's going to be happening with the Canticles. I don't know whether you'll have to pick the order of the Canticles before the game, but that's what's going on with Necrons and some of the other codexes, where you decide what kind of thing you want before the start of the game. So you might pick the cover bonus for turn 1 and the assault bonus for turn 4, and then you can't change it.
I'd be surprised. I'd be surprised if it was like that, because it wasn't like, it's never.
But then they're simplifying that kind of thing and making it similar.
Yeah.
I think my bet would be that Canticles will be decided before the game now. I think it would be an order thing. And then, but I guess you've always had Canticles. The difference when I saw this, that I was quite excited to ask you about yesterday when we played our game, was the Skitarii Doctrina. So the Skitarii didn't used to get Canticles, but now they get something new. And that was the one that you said specifically is basically what it was in 7th, where they get a bonus, but they also lose something. And I think that's really cool. That's a very fresh dynamic where the unit gets a buff, but it also gets a negative as a result of that.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's so in 7th edition, my army had 2 codexes, Cult Mechanicus and Skitarii, with 2 separate codexes. So, which is crazy. I mean, Skitarii didn't even have an HQ choice. But anyway, the Cult Mechanicus had Canticles, and the Skitarii had Doctrina Imperatives, and then they combined the codexes in 8th edition. They got rid of Doctrina and they made everything Canticles. And now they've kind of, it's just in one book, but they've separated it again into Cult Mechanicus and Skitarii. So I'm looking forward to getting this and reading it.
The other thing that was quite fresh, which I liked, and this is similar to what they did with some of the Space Wolves characters, is that your tech priests that you can pay for buffs on, in order to get the highest level of their buff, they have to perform an action. So they start with like a mediocre buff.
That's cool.
But by performing an action, which means they basically can't do anything else in the turn, from the next turn onwards, they get like a super buff, which I think is, again, quite a cool dynamic. The Space Wolves had something similar where they had to like kill a model, and that like gave them the super buff for the next turn. That kind of thing, I think, is quite fun.
That's quite cool.
Looks good. I imagine when you get the codex in your hands, there will be a lot of reading to do.
Yeah. Pre-orders this weekend. Shit. Yeah, better remember that. Or there won't be any more to buy.
So next up, Morven Val, one of the previews from Warhammer Fest, has just been given some rules, and it looks like she's going to be heading the Sisters of Battle army and leading it with an iron fist, because she is a fucking badass. So, Matt, it sounds like you're going to be wanting to pick up one of these for your sisters.
I mean, just in terms of the model itself, I think the model is really cool. But
Yeah.
I love the fact that it's a High Lord of Terror. Like every other figure we've got, and even Belisarius Cool is just a lowly adept. The model is fucking class, and she is like the Gilliman of this particular army, isn't she?
And these rules that they've previewed, she looks like she's going to be really tough. So she's less than 10 wounds, so you can't target her as a character. And when you do target her, she's got a 4-up invul and a 4-up invul against mortal wounds as well.
No way!
Yeah.
Oh, that is
which is cool. So she's going to have some serious staying power.
That's
and not
quality.
only that, if you do manage to get through the invul save, she only takes half damage on all incoming attacks.
Oh my god!
Which is great.
We're 20 minutes in, and Games Workshop have already sold a figure.
There we are. You said you weren't going to buy anymore.
Yeah, I know. I always say that. Everyone says that to themselves. I'm not buying anymore for the rest of the year. I'm definitely going to buy her. I'm buying her model.
And then in terms of attack, she's got what Games Workshop keep doing now is like variable profile on the same gun. So you've got a rocket launcher where you're either doing like, I guess they've always done it with like frag and crack, but multi-hit low damage or less hits high damage for taking out tanks. Yeah. And in combat, she's going to be doing 5 attacks at strength 8, AP -3, damage 3, hitting on 2s. She is going to be a beast. And hopefully those 4-up invuls and that damage reduction will let her get into combat, because I think she's going to do damage on the way and when she gets there. I think she will be a necessity. And then buff-wise, she's re-rolling 1s to hit and re-rolling 1s to wound. And she's got a kind of my will be done thing where in the command phase she can pick a unit that re-rolls all misses to hit and all wounds to hit.
Wow.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Right,
she would be a necessity.
So, yeah. All right, cool. So if you play Sisters of Battle, get yourself out there and get one of these things. What are you doing with your life?
Rolling in my 6-4.
So welcome back, everybody, to this part of the show, the meat of the show, where we start to talk to you about the Titans and the knights that drive them. And in this part, I think that Welshie's got, as is tradition, a lore quiz about the knight houses to warm me and Matt up and you, the listener at home, for the Titan episode.
That's right, yeah. We've got a little bit on the Imperial Knights and the Titans within the quiz, all right? So, question 1 for you two. First come, first serve. Which one of these 4 is not a real weapon found on a Titan? The Quake Cannon, the Volcano Cannon, the Magma Annihilator, or the Vulcan Mega Bolter? Which of those 4 is not a real weapon?
They all sound so real.
What was the first one?
Quake Cannon, Volcano Cannon, Magma Annihilator, or the Vulcan Mega Bolter?
The Magma Annihilator.
I'm going to go Magma Annihilator as well.
Oh, you saw straight through my ruse. You're right. The Magma Annihilator is one that I made up, but there is a Plasma Annihilator. Very close. Point each.
How did you not get that job as staff writer with that Magma Annihilator? We need to get that.
I changed one word. It wasn't enough. Okay. Question number 2. How do tech priests refer to Titans? What's their slang?
God engines. God machines.
Straight away. God machines.
I was going to say the wrong trousers, like the ones.
Okay, question 3. This is something I hadn't heard of till I did some reading recently. What is special about the lost STC of the Castigator class Titan?
It was massive. It was really big.
It was really big. That's part of it, but not.
It's
like all of it.
Its head.
Got lost
its
in
head
the
is
war.
above its shoulders.
Its head is above its shoulders. It did get lost in the warp.
It's not.
And it got killed by Grey Knights.
It's not human.
It did get killed by Grey Knights.
Its head is above its shoulders, and that's special.
It was abominable intelligence driven.
Oh my god!
Yeah, which is really cool. And you're very right, Stoney. It was killed by Grey Knights and you can find out more about it in the book Dark Adeptus by Ben Counter, which is like an early Black Library book. and apparently it fired demons out of a rotary cannon. That was its weapon.
Oh,
Oh
what?
man,
Yeah,
oh man, that's a modelling project and a half. The thing's like the size of a small child if you were to make it in like 28mm scale as well, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, that's a fun.
It's supposed to
fun
be
project.
30 times bigger than the biggest other Titan or something like that.
I couldn't find it. I found it quite difficult to find exact sizes, but most things were saying it was bigger than an Imperator, the Emperor class ones.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've not read that book. I might try and hunt it down. But like I say, it's a pretty old one from like the Grey Knights Ben Counter omnibus. Okay, question 4. There are many Imperial Knight households that all have different names. Now, some Imperial Knights fell to chaos, they're traitor knights, and some stayed true to either Mars or the Imperium. And each household has a name. So House Tyrannus is the most famous one, or House Hawkshroud. I've got 4 house names, and I want you to tell me whether they are traitor or not traitor. Okay, so the first one is House Black Skull. Traitor or not traitor?
Well,
Traitor.
Sounds pretty traitory.
It does, but that's the ruse, guys, because it is a loyal house. House Black Skull. The next one is House Stormfall. Traitor or not traitor?
Traitor.
Well, yeah, I'll say not traitor.
And you've fallen for the double bluff.
I've done it again.
it's
House
not
Fluffy
traitor.
Kittens, the most evil house of all.
That one actually was not traitor.
Oh,
Next one, House Morbidia.
Traitor.
yeah, it's going to be traitor.
Yeah, definitely traitor. And then the last one of the 4 for this question, House Divine.
Oh, you made that up.
I'm going to go traitor. I'm going to say it's a Slanesh thing.
I'll go loyal then.
It is traitor. Maybe it is Slanesh. That's a good point. I don't know, but there's a traitor. So there didn't seem to be too much consistency with the naming on houses as to have an impact on where they fall. Okay, the next 5 questions, 5 last ones, are a little bit of a size comparison, because when it comes to Titans, size really does matter. And working in science, we always compare things to random stuff, like is the size of a blue whale end to end with 6 elephants? But because we're dweebs, I've got size comparisons between Titans and other sci-fi franchises, which is in no way a copy of Stoney's Franchise Wars episode. I just want to know what's bigger. So, is an Imperial Knight or a TIE fighter bigger?
Imperial Knight.
Knight's got to be bigger.
It is Imperial Knight at 9 meters tall. A TIE fighter is 7.5 meters tall. What's bigger, the Warhound Titan, it's the next biggest Titan, or E.T.'s ship?
E.T. ship.
Oh, E.T. shit was pretty fucking big, to be fair. I'm gonna go Titan. No, I'm gonna go Titan.
It is E.T.'s ship, 4 meters bigger, 19 to 15 meters. Very close with all of these. Next one, it's another Star Wars because they're easy to find the heights. What's bigger, the Reaver Titan or the AT-AT Walker of Hoth fame?
That is the Star Wars Titan, isn't it? That's, yeah. I think that they're the same.
They're very close,
I
but you're going to have to go higher or lower.
80.
Okay. I reckon they're different by 1 meter, and the Reaver is smaller.
Very, very close, but the other way
think-
around.
Ah!
The Reaver is 24 meters, and the AT-AT is 22.5 meters. Next in size, then, is the Warlord Titan. Is it bigger or smaller than the Megazord of Power Rangers fame?
It's bigger. I fucking hope it's bigger.
Yeah. I actually know. I mean, the Megazord's always like, they've always got like a tiny little box city that the Megazord's smashing up as well. So I'm going to go Megazord's bigger.
Megazord beats it by 5 meters, 41 to 36. And then the last one, then the biggest, the Emperor or Imperator class versus Godzilla. What is bigger?
Imperator.
Yeah, Titan's bigger than Godzilla, I think.
Well, this was an interesting one, actually, to get into the Godzilla lore. But the original Godzilla was only 50 meters, the original Japanese Godzilla, which is smaller than the Imperator. but Godzilla today is like 300 meters in the new kaiju films because he's got to be taller than the buildings that are currently in cities, and that's bigger than the Imperator, which was about 60 to 100 meters tall. So yeah, depending on your Godzilla, the Imperator wins. So there's a little bit of size and background questions for you.
All right, so Welshie, do you want to give us a little bit of background about some of these knight households and some of these fellas behind the Titans, if it were, as it were?
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, the Imperial Knights, I think, are great models. They're obviously a cash cow because anyone can go into a shop and buy one of these that can't afford to go and buy a resin Titan that someone will talk about in a minute. So I thought I'd actually have a bit more of a look into their lore because they're, in a sense, I think quite cool. So they're either, the loyalist ones are either Questor Imperialis, which means they believe in the Emperor, but there is a complete split, which is Questor Mechanicus, and they believe in the Omnissiah. So there's kind of like a bit of a religious devotion, Catholic versus Church of England divide within these knight households as to whether they believe the Emperor or the Omnissiah, which is quite cool, I thought. And essentially, the people that pilot these come from feudal worlds. So when humanity spread out during the Dark Age of technology, some of the worlds become feudal, very knightly based worlds. So you think Caliban could easily be described as a feudal world, but it just didn't happen to evolve into one of these knight households. And what happened was the planets that were the most feudal, that had these real ranked hierarchies, the Mechanicus landed on these places and provided them with the technology to really enforce quite a horrible nobility-based class system and caste system. And they, in exchange for the resources from these planets, the knights gave protection to the Admech, and in exchange for that, the Admech gave them back massive suits of armor to drive around, which is pretty cool. So that was the kind of trade there. So the background lore for these and why they're called households is that there is a king at the head, and you've got heralds and barons and knightly vassals, and it is this real kind of, like I say, like a hierarchy where armor is passed down from father to son when father retires from the round table, you know, of the knightly household. So it has that kind of old age feel to the way that the structures and things are organized for these guys. And that's why you often see people play like 15 of these all in the same livery. They're all part of the same family or the same household within a planet, which is quite cool. But I think the best thing about it is the pilots, because these are driven by one dude sat in the cockpit, the Princeps, and he has to
Top Gun shit, right?
It really is.
You've got all your boys like Oz and the Fireman or whatever.
It's like Top Gun crossed with Sir Gawain the Green Knight. You know, imagine Lancelot in an F-40.
Yes.
That's what you've got here. But in order to become a Princeps of one of these, it's quite a big responsibility. You have to go through something which I enjoyed called the Ritual of Becoming at 18. And what happens during the Ritual of Becoming sounded a lot like my teenage years. And what happens is they take you into the cockpit and they strap you into the computer system by like plugging it into your brain, and they leave you alone for a night exploring the deep dark recesses of the computer system that runs the night. Which, you know, hopefully there's no Wi-Fi, there's no internet connection, because that's going to be a dirty cockpit the next morning. But what they've got to do is kind of tame the.
Do you think they just leave them in there, and all of a sudden you see the outside, you see the you know, the Imperial, the Titan just start jacking off, and it's like,
slice his leg off with the chainsaw.
Hose him down.
So yeah, they've got to kind of like wrestle with the machine spirit. So they kind of at one with the machine spirit. And it basically made me think, I don't know if you guys have seen Pacific Rim. Yeah. And I don't know what came first. Probably this, but I don't know the lore. These must have come first. But it's basically the same, where they're kind of at one with the system they're controlling. And they basically, the guys that are best at it are the ones that merge the best with the machine, and the machine reacts instantly to their thoughts. Be that jacking it or melting some heretics. So I thought that was really cool. And then even now most people are walking around in suits on these planets, there's still this hierarchy where the poor people get really lame ass like walkers to go and do their farming, where these guys walk around in their like fancy armored suits. And then they have their own like PDF on these worlds. They have their own kind of controlled planetary defense force that kind of follows these guys round, that isn't really Imperial Guard and doesn't really fit into anything else. And then they have the sacristans, which are the engineers that are held in really high regard on these planets, who have knowledge that the AdMech don't really let them have, but have to let them have because they know how these machines work best and that kind of thing.
So does some of that reflect in the rules, like when you play Knights?
Yeah.
Can you bring some like Imperial Guard guys along as like they're, you know, they're kind of the guys that run the fairground rides, and he's the fairground ride, you know, like.
I think the biggest thing that reflects in the rules with that is that if you want to play Space Marines with a knight, it's much more restrictive than playing AdMech with a knight. So Matt actually has in the AdMech Codex, he has the option of taking a knight.
Yeah,
whereas I would have to take a knight as a separate detachment with my Raven Guard. So that's kind of reflected there. I'd have to actually pay command points to do that.
I have in front of me an Imperial Knight name generator.
Okay.
Welshie, pick a number between 66.
I will go with 33.
And pick another one.
And 21.
You are called Kalena, Fury of Themar.
Oh, nice.
And Stoney, you can do a Chaos Knight name.
Okay, cool.
Pick a number between 66.
6.
And another one.
9.
69. You are called Infanor, Insanity of Maul.
Oh man.
Insanity.
Oh.
That was my nickname at the no,
Your
cut it out, cut it out.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's really them. Like I say, I've enjoyed the models. I know Matt isn't a massive fan of the
were we
Imperial
talking
Knight
about
models.
these
We talked
yesterday?
about it yesterday, but I think they're cool. More, not necessarily the design. I think the design itself is actually quite cool, but I think it was a cool concept. It is a cash cow, but it's nice that you can go and you can have a small version of the thing you really want.
Yeah.
The lore though, the idea of like the knightly houses is really cool. It's quite interesting, and I don't know why I don't like the model, but they've been around in the lore for decades, because they had they had that little in Epic. I think they had models of knights. So you're right. It's great that you can go and buy it in the shop. Like, it is a mini Titan. It is,
and I really like that. We won't probably get it too deep into the Chaos versions of all this stuff, but the Chaos ones that they've got now are cool. And if you're really interested in the Top Gun, going out with a gang of mates and having a battle with these guys running around the desert and stuff, check out the Mechanicum book for the Horus Heresy, because it's basically a war between two knight households.
It's
and
quality.
it's really cool.
Yeah. But there's also lots of Titans in it, which are even bigger walking machines that are the pinnacle of the human technology in 30K and in 40K. Well, as you've already alluded to with Godzilla, Titans are skyscraper-sized bipedal walking engines. They are moving fortresses, the larger versions anyway. But their origins are steeped in mystery. They are rumored to have been created to fight the AI constructs of mankind in the dark ages of technology. So the Iron Men, when man's technology fought against humans and nearly wiped humanity off, that humanity created these enormous war machines to fight back, essentially. And obviously
So
they were very good.
Was that just
because
a
they
point
won.
in Warhammer history kind of thing? There was
Yeah. So their origins are steeped in history, but by the time of 40K, they are like one of the most technologically advanced machines, because they have these plasma generators, which are, because it's not like a starship, so it's actually quite a small machine to have a lot of power and energy in, that's controlled by a race that essentially doesn't know how it works. So they are a really high tech machine in 40k. They're operated by the Adeptus Mechanicus for that reason, because they kind of know how to repair them. I don't know if they know how they actually work and how to build them, especially the larger versions. But they're controlled by the Adeptus Mechanicus through a division called the Collegia Titanica, which run the Titan legions. And there's many subdivisions of the Collegia Titanica. One of them, interestingly, is a division in charge of research and development. So there's actually an R&D section of.
Is there a health and
Titans.
safety section?
Probably.
There are PPE.
I don't know with Titans. Yeah.
So do these Titans, do they take like more people to run and stuff rather than your Knight Titan, which is one guy sort of thing? You've got like a group of people running these things.
Yeah. So you have there's various sizes of Titans. So the Titans are organized into they're kind of regiments of Titans, I suppose, legions of Titans, the Titan legions, and they're based on the Forge worlds because they're the worlds that can maintain them.
It's a bit like weight classes in the fighting leagues. You've got different scales.
So like in any kind of armored regiment, you have a scout unit. So you have the Warhound, which is the smallest Titan, which is a kind of a scout Titan. It moves ahead of the larger ones. And then you have a Reaver Titan, which is a size up, which is larger than an AT-80. And then you have a Warhound, which is the largest one you can buy. Warlord. And then you have the Imperator, the Emperor class, which are the crazy guys with the cathedrals on their back.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that I always think of when you see it.
Their quality, yeah.
Those are amazing.
They always have one person in command. So they have a princeps in command, but they have a crew. So I think a Warhound has a princeps and 2 moderati. So there's and I think always a tech priest. So there's kind of 4 on there, and then as they go up, there's more and more guys inside it. And the Emperor class has like a crew of like hundreds, but they also have a transport capacity in their lower shins. Some of the artwork, they have like essentially like bunkers, like fortresses that form the lower part of their leg, and they are normally full of Scutari. So the Scutari are the infantry that protect the Titans from other infantry. That's essentially why the Scutari exist, which is quite cool. But the Titan legions are only based on Forge worlds. Obviously, they're spread out across the Imperium, but the Titan legions owe their allegiance to a particular Forge world. So Mars, as far as I remember, Mars used to be special because it used to have 2 legions, and other Forge worlds just used to have 1. But I think that's changed now, which is quite cool. But there's also a division of the Collegia Titanica which have Psi Titans. Have you heard of this?
No.
Yeah, psychic
Titans. Yeah. So I think during the Horus Heresy, I don't know, this is just from memory, but during the Horus Heresy, the Emperor realized what was happening, and he or Malcador created these kind of like the Grey Knights, these psychic Titans, and they still exist in 40k, but they're steeped in mystery. They come from a Forge world that nobody knows where it is, kind of like the Grey Knights. Nobody knows that they're actually based in Titan. Most people don't know they exist either. But they're normal Titans, so it's like a Warlord Titan, but it's its main weapon is psychic powers. So maybe they appear like at a warp rift and start fighting.
They've
stuff
got some
off.
kind of things for like amplifying and shooting psychic powers.
Yeah.
Or something. I never.
There's always some overlap with that, like being one with the machine. Like that machine spirit. Like what is that machine spirit? Like is there actually some kind of demon type entity trapped within the machine? Or is it like maybe like a bit of the void dragon, maybe not a whole shard, maybe like a crumb of the void dragon in each one, or like that? That is a real mystery. Like
you pointed out with the Imperial Knights, the princeps, when they are they go through training for many years, training to be a commander of these giant war engines, and when a Titan is free for them to then command, they are essentially just plugged into it, and if they survive, then great, and they get plugged in, and they do essentially have to fight the computer. They have to fight the AI of this Titan to see who's going to win, and they have to dominate the machine to
like breaking the back of a big Bronco or something.
Yes.
Like
I guess it's like a steed.
Break it in.
Space cowboys.
In a giant skyscraper-sized war machine. But the thing I've always, Titans are pretty cool, but the thing I've always like tried to picture is how they get onto the planet, like because they're especially like an Imperator Titan, which is massive. How does it get onto the world? And you can never really find out properly. But
the small ones in like the Horus Heresy stuff, they get lowered down by these massive like Chinook style.
They have huge drop pods, don't they? But since the Horus Heresy, because of what happened in the Horus Heresy, one of the things that happened to the Titan legions was that their ability to deploy was taken away from them. So they rely completely on the Imperial Navy to deploy. The idea being that they're less powerful. So in the Horus Heresy, the Titan legions were able to go wherever they like and do whatever they want. And obviously that's not good if they're going to be turning traitor. So in 40k, Titan legions rely on the Imperial Navy to get them from A to B. So then that restricts their power. Apart from, well, I guess they still need the Navy, but there's the Titan Legion from the Forge world, Lucius, who
can they just teleport? Yeah,
they teleport into battle. So yeah, they're the Forge world dogma of Lucius. If you play AdMech now, you can play Lucius, and the benefits that you have are that you can teleport loads of units everywhere, and they can do that with their Titans, which is insane. To think of these like giant warlord Titans just appearing on the battlefield is quite cool. That's quite cool.
So are these in the kind of current lore? Are these supposed to be Titans left over from the Horus Heresy, like 30k times? They're not. I mean, the AdMech don't build new ones, kind of thing.
Well, they do. They do still build. They still build some of them. They are rumored to have lost the details of the STC constructs to build the Imperator and the Reaver Titans. So that's the very large one and kind of the middle size one. So the small one and the largest one you can buy from Forge World, they do still build. They have the ability to build those. Obviously, only a select few Forge Worlds have the STCs to be able to do that, but they do build them still. But a lot of it is to do with maintenance. So obviously, if a Titan gets damaged in the battlefield, the Skitarii legions will fight to reclaim what's left of it, so they can recover it and then rebuild it. They'll still rebuild it. So it's a mix. Some of it they can't do, and some of it they can still do. But I don't think they understand how it works.
They're a lot rarer, aren't they, in 40k? They're like a real mystery, whereas people would expect one to turn up on the battlefield in a war in 30k times. In 40k, it's really weird, because I remember in Eisenhorn, in the original Eisenhorn trilogy, there's a bit where him and his retinue are just kind of chilling out in a forest, and then this Titan comes to life. I think it's a Warhound.
Oh, wicked.
It's only one of the smaller ones, but it's just him and his like 6 mates trying to take down this half-functioning like ancient Titan that comes back to life, and it's just a real cinematic, excellent scene. And they're like, they can't believe it. They're just terrified because it's not something they ever really knew or saw or had anything. It's like a myth to the general people of the galaxy.
I mean, we talk about them like the smallest Titan, and they're called a Scout Titan, but they carry the weaponry from 2 Imperial Guard super heavy tanks, essentially. Like some of those plasma guns on them are the guns that are put onto super heavy battle tanks that you can buy from Forge World, but they've got 2 in both arms. So they're still incredibly powerful. And they all have void shields, so they have the same shielding that Imperial Navy warships have. The smaller ones have less shielding on, but the larger ones have like insane void shield layers. I think in Adeptus Titanicus, that's reflected in the game, so you have more shield layers that an enemy has to break through.
Well, talking of Adeptus Titanicus, then. To music.
The 70s.
The 80s. The 90s.
Oh, we're going back in time.
Is that a space swap?
It's time we take you back with a blast from the past.
Yeah, so my blast from the past, trying to stay relevant to the topic today, are the original Titan models from the late 80s. That were released in the Adeptus Titanicus box set, which was at the epic scale. And you got War Master Titans within that, plastic War Master Titans. And the other thing in the box that came with it were, I believe still, I can't think of anything else, but styrofoam buildings.
The buildings are quality.
They weren't cardboard, they were like actual styrofoam. And then cool card models and the colours of the time and the cardboard. And that was the first style. It was a Jervis Johnson game, still a hero of Games Workshop, And my favourite model that went with that box that was brought out afterwards in metal was one of the first designs by Jez Goodwin, who is designer of many of the things that we love, which was the Reaver Titans, to play at this scale. And he obviously went on to design the Imperial Knights. He's the designer that made the Imperial Knights, and I've heard him interviewed about it, and he talks about how he worked on this project to start with and how he wanted to pull all that across into a smaller scale that was accessible for people to buy for the 40k games. The thing that really stood out was the bases, though, because they had rotary wound counters in the bases, which I thought was a modern STC. But apparently it's been around for years, and I don't know why we don't still have it on everything from Games Workshop. Bring it back, I say.
So it's this whole time period of this scale game, I think it's 6mm scale, they call it. Of this, Adeptus Titanicus. Because Adeptus Titanicus is basically the 3rd version of Epic. So Space Marine, then Space Marine Epic, then Titanicus. And weirdly, Epic as a game was something I really didn't know a lot about at the time, but after looking into for this, seemed like at the time it was a really very much a gamer's game. It was more about the game than about the models. It was more tactical, and weirdly had a lot of stuff like you're talking about with these wound counters and things that was really quite progressive at the time, and that you didn't see so much. I don't know. They had things like detachments you could take, which we see now in the game, and everything was represented on cards rather than in a big book, to make things easier to play and just make the game a lot more streamlined. So it's a bit of an anomaly in that respect, to the things that it kind of took over.
I think that's quite a good summary, and it kind of made me think that a lot of historical war games, so as you say, like a war gamer's war game is 6 mil. That's like quite a standard kind of scale for someone that's proper like and has all the cards printed out.
It is definitely more for the crowd because I mean it had things like the rule book for Epic had stuff that they knew war gamers liked in it, like it had all like cross sections of the Titans and like said, you know, like, these are the kind of screws that they used, and like, you know, really tried to make it more real, you know, give it that kind of real sort of military history aspect that like 40K didn't have. So you know, that's kind of interesting in that regard.
If Forge World sold a £30 Haynes manual of a warlord Titan, they would sell absolutely thousands of them. That's
seriously, check out the old Space Marine and Epic rulebooks, because they've got, I mean, it's all the like, you know, it's all very much like it just. So the power glove, I remember I was looking through it today, and it had an illustration of a power fist, and the power fist just looked like a kind of a marigold glove, you know, because it's like the old Rogue Trader version rather than the new big hench one that you've got now. But still, it's pretty cool. Still, you know, pretty interesting to see.
When we did the, I can't remember what the episode was, but we spoke about Magnus a lot, the Trial of Magnus the Red, and I did watch a couple of epic battle reports with Magnus fighting in it, and it did look like it looked great fun. Like he got blown up by Imperial Guard artillery because the Imperial Guard are insanely powerful in the game because the boards are so big that they just shoot everything. But it looked great.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that, again, I haven't played it, but I think, again, it's more tactical. Things like movement in that kind of classic old school fantasy way where you've got to turn everything and have everything facing the right direction and stuff is a big part of the game. You know, that kind of thing. It's more like... I'm just going to bleed straight into what I want to talk about for this part of the show, which is the model side of things. As you know, I like to talk about models and stuff, and us talking about Epic bleeds quite nicely into what I've got to bring to the table today, which is basically the models appearing in Games Workshop and the history of the models. Really, this did all start with Epic, like we've just talked about, because Epic filled a gap in the old Rogue Trader, which was vehicles and like big war machines and stuff. Because in Rogue Trader and in the first two editions of Warhammer, well, I think you got the Predator as well, but there was the Rhino and there was the Land Raider. Those were the only two vehicles outside the lead ones you got for like squat bikes or like orc bikes or stuff like that. So everybody was basically sharing, you know, Eldar could use Rhinos and Land Raiders, and, you know, same as everybody else. It was just, there just wasn't enough stuff to go around. So Epic really filled that gap in this kind of larger macro war that was going around outside of your Rogue Trader game or what have you, and that really kind of captured people's imaginations. So a lot of the original knights weren't made by Games Workshop at all, but were actually fan-made creations. So, for instance, before the Forge World that we know today, there was actually a series of 4 companies in California that all tried their hand at making Titans and all got licenses from Games Workshop to make Titans and Knights and stuff like that. And I'm sure that some people might know, like, kind of group all of these kind of collection of models in and know them as Armor Cast. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Armor Cast, which is kind of a classic old school. They're resin models, some of, you know, but made not by Games Workshop, even though they were licensed to them. And these basically were made by a guy called Nike Biassi, who in 1990 made a bunch of clay sculpts based on the Epic models. He basically just scaled up the Epic models. So they do look a bit funny because they don't have the same kind of detail on, and they've got kind of restrictions on the poses and stuff, but he's just scaled them up into bigger versions. this was old school Games Workshop. So he just rung up, Mr. Game. He rung up Gav Thorpe and was like, listen, Gav, I've got these things, I want to sell them. And Gav just like, yeah, fuck it, sell them, have the rights, whatever. And he got the license to sell them as long as it was only in USA. Because, obviously there was kind of, shipping backwards and forwards and all the rest of it. So it wasn't as big a thing in America as it was here in Britain. So they were like, yeah, it's fair enough, you can do that. And they let him have the rights. And he made a bunch of stuff. Like he made Elder Knights, he made Reaver Titans, Warlord Titans, a Baneblade, an Elder Tempest.
Did he do the really funny big Tyranid thing that's like a crab with two like...
He did not do that. We will come to that in the future, but he has not done that. No, you're right. Although that's another, because all of these companies were using Epic as their go-to point, because these models, they existed in the artwork. Again, I mean, this is a bit like we talked about with Mechanicus on the last episode. These were things that existed in pictures and lore way before. An interesting thing about this as well is like when we talked to Gav and he said lore rules all. This is another example of that. This is the lore. This is because basically a load of other people did all the groundwork for these knights before Games Workshop had to, because they were just that into the lore, So anyway, so you've got Mike Biassi, who is a Warhammer legend out here making these knights, making, bits and pieces, one-man operation. So Mike, basically, he needed to get some rules made for these Titans because Games Workshop weren't going to help him out with that. So he ended up getting in contact with these guys at Inquisitor magazine, which is a magazine I remember back from when I used to play Magic cards, because it used to give you Magic card prices and stuff like that in. But this was, this is 90s. This is, back when you had to research things. You couldn't just go on the internet. You had to go out and buy some weird magazine from a strange shop to kind of research your hobbies, So he got in contact with this guy from Inquisitor magazine, who basically came along and wrote some rules for him and published them in Inquisitor, and he started producing these knights, and they started doing really well. They're about $300 a go, but people were into it. And even then, basically he just set up what you think of as Forge World now, just independently, he kind of just doing it himself, So then after that, another guy comes along who decides that he's going to fill in some more vehicles that are missing from the Games Workshop range. So he makes a company called Epic Cast that start making smaller vehicles from Epic, again, filling out things like drop pods and orc stompers and things like that. They get in 1995, Epic Arts lost their license, and Mike Biassi decides to close down his studio because he developed a sensitivity to the resin that he was using to cast things. So he was like, no, I've got to pack it in. I know, sod's law, right? So to fill in the... Yeah, he's like, basically the resin's really nasty shit. He's pouring resin all day. It's burning his lungs out or something. This is 90s resin as well. This is, hardcore. He's in a shed in California somewhere, sweating his nuts off, just him and a bunch of resin. It's not good. So he's out, and Epicast lost their license. So they're both out. In 1995, there's a gap that needs filling. And that's when enter Forge World Miniatures USA. And this has no relation. This is a complete coincidence. This has no relation to the Forge World that we know. And this is another company who basically come in, they start recasting a load of Mike Biassi's stuff and the Epicast things. And they're allowed to do that because none of it is their intellectual property. As long as they get permission from Games Workshop, then they're the people that own the intellectual property. So basically, Forge World USA come in and start recasting a load of Mike Biassi's stuff, which really pisses Mike Biassi off, and he starts calling them Forgery World and getting pissed off on forums and things back in the late 90s. So yeah, so at this stage, the only people who you've got making this scale models are Forge World USA, who are notoriously quite bad. People are pissed off with them. Mike's pissed off with them. So enter Armorcast in 1995, who are the people who we know as Armorcast, and who a lot of these models up until this point, if you saw listed on eBay or something, would be grouped in as an Armorcast model, even though it's probably not necessarily an Armorcast. An Armorcast, again, do the exact same thing. They pick up where Forge World left off. They just start, they get the license from Forge World. They start recasting all the Mike Biassi stuff, but also making some of their own things, introducing a lot of
a lot of their own models, and basically became a kind of a third-party company to produce GW models. So they were making these strange knights and things that you can still see. And apparently they're still legal. You can't use them in tournament play, apparently, but you can take them to Games Workshops and play with them. Should be able to, at least, because they're still, they're still technically a Games Workshop licensed model.
I'm sure I've seen some of the Armor Cast stuff. It's got that really yellow hue to the resin. It's like a weird yellow colour.
A lot of the old resins like that are kind of a weird sort of peach colour.
Yeah.
But strangely, it could almost be said, because Armorcast started producing some sort of original models as well, or their interpretations of epic stuff. And you could, a lot of people say that the original Orc Battle Wagon, which is a model I've shown you guys, I owned it. It's the first model I got, a weird kind of open-topped wagon type thing. That actually looks suspiciously like the Armorcast version. So it does look a bit like maybe Games Workshop was borrowing some ideas from Armorcast as well. So there was this kind of little backwards and forwards between the design process between them. But yeah, in 1998, Games Workshop basically told Armorcast to sling their hook. They were done. They're withdrawing the license. They're going to sell. They had a year and a half, I think, to sell off all their existing inventory, and then license was done. All of that's gone. And that's because 1998 was the year that Forge World opened. The Forge World that we know today, the Games Workshop Forge World, who basically just picked up and ran with this whole thing. I'm not saying that they stole the idea or anything. Obviously they didn't. They'd gone there. They dabbled a little bit in making some of these big models. I don't know if any of you guys have seen the metal Thunderhawk model that Games Workshop made.
Yeah,
it's a beast. I think it's like 400 quid it cost or something at the time, but it's this big metal Thunderhawk model. So they'd already sort of dipped their toe in this kind of idea of making a big model, and then they were like, these models are selling, it's time we bring it over and start making it here. And they just kind of ran with it, and that's how Forge World basically started out, and the kind of the people that sort of set the way for Forge World, really, which I think is pretty interesting. Unfortunately, Mike Biassi, the guy that kind of that made all of these originals and stuff, died in 2018, but it's still, obviously the influence he had as a sculptor and getting these out there and things is something that, if we're going to talk about Titans and things like that, I think it's important to mention him, because he was one of the original sculptors of the very first kind of commercially available knight. That's pretty interesting.
Cheers, Mike. Now you just make me want to spend £1,000 on a Forge World one. I bet his one that much money.
Yeah.
What a cool history. There's a whole TV show in that, isn't there?
God, that I kept thinking about Anchorman, like all these different groups fighting each other. Like,
I bet they had great hair
in California.
Yeah. But I think that one of the interesting sort of takeaways from this is that, in a way, especially to do with like model development and stuff like that, is that in a way Games Workshop they obviously felt that they didn't have the ability to kind of do these large scale battles at first, is why they needed to sort of change the size up. But that line is definitely becoming a lot more blurred now, so we could kind of see these epic battles kind of occurring on the battlefield, and I just think that's kind of interesting, the way that it's changed. But then also, do we lose something? Do we lose some of these epic rules, this kind of pro gamer shit that Epic set out to do, where we've got to kind of mash it in with a 40k game as well? So who knows where the future of the Titans will take us? Let's hope we get some of these side Titans out there and some of this cool stuff as well.
Yeah, it'd be cool. And I will, at some point, buy myself a set of Adeptus Titanicus, because it does look like a good game and a faithful representation of the original.
It's made by Forge World, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
But it's plastic.
Yeah. Yes?
And
yeah,
it's plastic, yeah. I think, it does. It does look good. And you have the firing arcs and everything. But the I thought was quite interesting was, Adeptus Titanicus, what's the Titan in it called? They've got all of them now, even up to the War Master. No. The original Adeptus Titanicus.
The first, the 1980s box, it was the War Master, plastic War Masters.
So the War Master, I thought that was a new thing they made up, because that's the new Titan they've just released for the new game, isn't it?
I think it was
And that's quite cool
plastic
that
War
it goes
Masters,
back to it's quite cool that it
Mm.
goes back to the original set. I didn't know that was a real like a thing from the past.
I mean,
Yeah,
that's it. It's like, in a way, Titans are one of the most unchanged piece of Warhammer things that we've had.
Oh man, it's definitely the best dressing up costume of any Warhammer I've ever seen. Is someone built themselves a suit, a Titan suit that they could fit in. It's fucking quality. When I was younger, I used to imagine like with my army that I was like a Titan size, because you are like, that's the kind of scale to your Warhammer army. Yeah, like so good. So it's such a good costume.
Welcome back, everybody, to this part of the show where we pick a random topic by Lady Luck's roll of a dice. So, Welshie, do you have the company dice?
As always, here they are.
Roll that company dice and let's see what
2 painting or modelling tool that you couldn't do without. I'm not talking a paintbrush. Everyone needs a paintbrush. I'm not talking about a paint pot. Something you've bought that at some point revolutionised your hobby.
I'm going to go, could I say rubber brush? Does that count if it's not a paintbrush?
I think you can go rubber brush. Yeah.
Which I use for sculpting. They're very good. They're very forgiving.
What's the benefit of them over like a metal tool?
I mean, metal tools have their place as well, but sometimes you just need something to give you, you don't want the harshness of the metal tool. You want it just to gently stroke along the surface rather than leave a dent or something. And that's where the rubber brush really comes into its own.
That's because I find that really difficult. So you use a rubber brush to get like a smooth curve rather than a kind of
So for instance, if I was going to make an eye, I would kind of cut the eyeball shape out and then use the rubber brush to push what I'd cut out back over the eye to make the kind of eyelid, if you see what I mean.
Okay.
So it's just a kind of a softer way of moving things around, so you wouldn't necessarily leave a big mark or something.
No, nice.
Yeah.
Matt?
I'm sure there was something I thought about, and
Do you want some more
I was
time?
tempted. No. I'm not going to remember. I'm sure there was something I've thought about asking this question before. On the top of my head, I kind of thought, maybe a wet palette is quite useful. Do I really care about it? Not really. So mine is going to be a pin vise, because
they are handy.
They are very handy, and you can drill little holes and put magnets in. You can pin with them. You can drill your gun barrels out with them. Pin vise.
Okay, right. Pin vise, good call.
Stuff. Well, after you've poo-pooed it, I'm going to go with it because it really has made a difference, and that's the wet palette, which I didn't do. I've been painting Warhammer what I'd consider properly for about 5-6 years now, and I've only got a wet palette within the past 18 months, and I wish that I had done it a lot sooner. It makes blending easier, it makes mixing easier, it means you can paint a whole unit without the colour you've mixed up drying out.
Yeah,
it's really good. A wet palette with a decent brush it makes all the difference for blending, and they cost nothing. Bit of paper, bit of sponge, and a Tupperware. That's all you need. Greaseproof paper. Nice. Don't try and put bog roll in there.
There you go. I can't say I've ever used a wet palette, so I'll give that a go.
I think you'd love it, Stoney. You can mix all your colours together. Just
Literally, Tupperware, flat sponge, greaseproof paper, bit of water in the bottom. That's it.
All right. Well, cool. Well, there you go. Let's get out there and get wet paletting or whatever it's called. All right, hello everybody. Welcome back to the last part of the show, the Lords of Lore. You all know what it is by now. I do a quiz, and Matt and Welshie try to win the quiz for glory and £20 gift voucher to Ask Italian Restaurant. Okay, so this time I'm going to do some weird lore. We know we've all done some. We all know that there's some strange stuff in the 40k lexicon. So I'm going to see. I've been picking out some of the weird questions and things that I like to see if you guys can help me out here. So, Are you ready?
Yes. Always.
Yeah.
Okay. So, the Slaanesh planet of Olynesius is weird because why? So it's a Slaanesh planet called Olynesius.
Because
Olynesius, Olinesius.
I think it's like a pearl, like a oyster pearl, like a tongue, like a tentacle tongue, like a flippy floppy octopus, tiddly widdly wet tongue.
I'm going to say the planet is alive.
Okay, planet is alive. All right, I'm going to give the point to Welshie on this one because the planet is alive. It was a chaos lord that Slaanesh gave the gift of just getting super fat if he just carried on eating. So he just carried on eating and eating, and eventually became a planet called Olenesius. Yeah.
Yeah, wafer thin mint for you, sir.
Exactly, yeah. Okay, so the Catachan face eater eats faces, but how does it lure its prey into letting it eat its face?
I
think I've looked this up before.
Is it the smell?
No.
Is it food? Water?
Okay. Is that your answer? Food and water?
Yeah,
I'm going to say it's like a shimmering pond that you catch your reflection in, like a kind of Narcissus type trap.
Okay. Well, I don't think I can give either of you a point to this because this is maybe one of my new favourite pieces of 40k lore. The Catachan face eater eats people's faces by disguising itself as a towel and then hanging out in bathrooms so people go and try their face, and the face eater eats their face. That's from that's from one of the Rogue Trader novels. Okay. So this is going to be a first come, first serve one, and just to jog some of the listeners at home memory, really. What is the name of the first Inquisitor ever mentioned in 40k?
Clouseau. Robinson Clouseau. Yeah.
What is it? What's his full name?
Oh God, I can't remember. Obi-Wan.
Obi-Wan Sherlock Crusoe.
Sherlock Crusoe. Yeah.
I'll give you both a point. So it's like I didn't give you a point at all. Okay. So. Who is the only person to have escaped Teach's labyrinth?
Agnes.
No, afraid not. The answer is no. I'm afraid the answer is a little girl and her dog. The only two people that have ever escaped Teach's labyrinth. That's from the 7th edition Codex, Demon's Codex.
What?
What?
Yeah, I vaguely remember this story, and it's just kind of like the little girl's kind of like too pure and naive to be like tricked by Teacher's stuff. She just wants to hang out with her dog, so Teacher's just like, and she just kind of wanders out. As far as I remember, it's something weird like that.
That's weird though, because in that Dark Imperium book, that's how the Emperor appears and scares Mortarion away. He appears in this. He appears as a little girl. This little girl appears, and Mortarion is like petrified of this.
Because
he sees light.
Mortarion's on a list. We all know Mortarion's not around little girl. That grubby cunt. He's definitely got allowed. All right. Along with Craftworld Eldar and Dark Eldar, there are Exodites. But what do they do?
Ride
dinosaurs.
Oh, yeah. I'll give you both a point. There's an extra point there. Like, is there anything else they do that they could potentially?
They do whatever the fuck they want.
Yeah, they're riding dinosaurs. They do what they want. Yeah, Matt, I'll give you another point. Yeah.
Do they protect
just kind of live with nature?
Do they have they protect like old one temples or something? They have some kind of
basically they sort of live with nature and hang out on dinosaurs and stuff like that. Yeah. How many times has Fulgrim been married?
3.
I'm gonna go only in secret to Mortarion. Not Mortarion, sorry, Mephiston. The only man to equal his looks.
Matt, I think you were closer. It's actually 5 times. I completely didn't realise it. He's got a whole thing in his in the book, the Primarch book of his, where he's talking to the Califax or something about how he was married before, and he only ever loved the first wife, and then the other 4 were just people who he just married. So yeah,
that's
so there you go.
Mental.
Yeah, very strange, right? How can a Space Marine gain someone's memories?
Eats their saliva or their blood.
Yeah, I thought it was something to do with eating.
I'll give you both a point. Yeah, they eat them.
Yeah.
If a Space Marine eats a person, they get their memory. Okay.
This is the last question. So all to play for. Everyone knows this is the big money question when it comes to Lords of the Law. Felinda is a planet in the 40k lexicon, but why is it weird?
Felinda.
Felinid.
Is it full of cats? Is it a planet of feline cats?
Oh, Welshie. Yes, it's basically a planet of cat people.
What?
It's basically a planet of cat people that is known to the Kroot, and the Kroot tell stories of these guys that have claws the size of their forearms, and they otherwise kind of look like normal people, but they're actually cat people, and they live on Felinda.
That would be a cool new addition to the Tau. Some close combat cat people.
Yeah.
Oh, that is ridiculous.
Cats and camels.
So I'm totaling up the scores here, and Matt, you were in the lead, but Welshie obviously answering the final question means that you are this week's Lord of Law. How do you feel?
I feel great. Yeah, I'm going to go cat hunting.
Fantastic. All right. Well, that's been another edition of the Large Blast podcast. We'll speak to you all next time. Bye.
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 谷間の暗闇にキラリと光る怒りの目安らぎ捨てて